Good afternoon, folks. Time for some more development. And with the graphs, we're still on the graphs, which is still going to take some time, right? And this might be a bit of a slog, but sometimes when you're developing stuff like this, it can become a bit of a slog. But having done a bit of a look at it this morning, I've kind of had a few thoughts about this, and this set range shouldn't really be here. Okay, and the reason for that is basically we should be taking the maximum not from the highest quantity, right? Or yes, probably from the highest quantity. But this thing here shouldn't be coming from, it should actually come from the relevant data, okay? We shouldn't be checking everything, we should just be checking the relevant data that comes back, okay? So, with that in mind, we should really update this value here. Okay, and we should be pulling it from the relevant data. Okay, which is temp char data. Okay. Now, we might have to do this slightly different, but the point here is that our kind of logic wasn't right. And so what we'll do, right, is we need to actually make a move here and get some of these things started properly. Okay, because we're kind of procrastinating a bit over this one. So let's do this. So when we get our relevant data, then basically we're going to do the setup return highest value, okay? Well, actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to do set range. Okay. Hi, somebody, how are you, mate? How are you this fine Saturday afternoon or evening or whatever time it is for you? Right, but this return relevant data is the temp chart data. Okay. You can see it there. So what we actually want to do is get the highest value in this data. Okay. So we are going to get this data here. And we're going to do a for each loop on that. Okay. Alright, you're working on a project, are you? If you don't mind telling me what type of thing you're doing. So we're going to have to break the data points. And we're not actually bothered about this anymore. So we're going to gain some efficiency here. So we're going to plug that in there. Right. And when we come in here, we're going to set this to 0. This will be fun to see if it works. Right. Ooh, interesting. Right, so in the struct data points, we are going to have to say select, we're going to have to add this. Right, so we're going to need this selected. Okay, and it's going to be selected by default. What was the example? I think you've you had a bit of a typo. You move it, or if it bumps somewhere, it should play a sound. Right, so we can come back in here and we basically add that to there, and that should actually still work. Yeah, but what's your example? You typed in, the biggest problem I'm having, that I'm trying to like add a sound to object, for example, hunni. You move it, or if it bumps somewhere, it should play a sound, but I'm having a bad time finding that info. So I don't know what an HWNE is, or what you were actually trying to say. Right, so we basically delete that, we move this into its place. Right, we'll move this underneath as usual, and to keep it tidy. And then this goes into here. This goes into here. Now, if the quantity is greater than that, Right, okay. Give me a second. So we add that to there. Right. So, are we going to help out somebody? I think we are. But, first of all, we'll just check this to make sure it actually works. Okay. So, and then we'll press G. And there we go. It doesn't. Yep, there we go. Okay. Right. Now for somebody. Okay. So I've got the very thing. Okay. Well, let me show you first what I mean. Okay. Right. So we have a rocket launcher. Okay. And it fires rockets. Okay. Cool. So, if we wanted this to do something, right, we can go into our launcher and then into our missile. Now, the missile is the thing that fires, right? And this is what happens when it hits something, right? So when our rocket hits something, we want it to play a sound. Okay? So we just basically put it in here. Okay, right? Now, what we could have is we can set up a sound, right? So we can say explosion. We'll rename it to make it more obvious. Explosion sound. Okay. And then what we can do is we can go up to the variable type. Now this is going to be the same in UE5, by the way. There'll be no difference. Okay. So this is going to be sound, except it's going to be right. Let's see what we've got here. I'm going to have to find a sound or make a sound, okay? Have I got any sound effects? That's the question. Right, so what I want to do is I want to make a sound cue, and we'll call it SND explosion, right? And our explosion is going to come from a sound which we don't apparently have, right? Sound effect chain, no, we don't want to do that. Right, forget any of this, right, because that's too complicated, right? We're not trying to do anything with this, we're just trying to basically create a sound. So, if we go to grenade pack, and I'm hoping that this has got some sort of sound effects as well, right, but obviously it's not, so I'm going to have to try and find something with sounds. Right, there's a lot of, you get a lot of assets and they don't come with any sound at all, so I'm just trying to basically find something with sound on it. Right, here's footsteps, right? So what we can do is we can go to audio, okay, and do we have an explosion sound? Apparently not. Let's see if we've got anything else that we can do with sounds. Apparently not. What about Wild West? Has this got any sounds? Apparently not. Right, okay. So we're going to have to go with a sound here, right? So what we'll do is we'll create a queue, right? And then we'll name it our, or we'll call it somebody's queue, okay? And we're going to change this to be a queue. So we want sound queue, and then if we compile it, we can add our sound. So this is going to be somebody's queue, okay? And then what we can do is we can say play sound. Now if you want it as a flat sound with no direction, like say you were in a menu, then you would just play sound 2D, okay, like that, right? And then we could basically drag this into here, and this would give us our sound. Now I don't know if you guys are going to hear this or not. You probably aren't, due to the way that I've got this set up, but we can just do that, right? And let's give it a 10, and is UI sound doesn't really matter. Right, now I'm going to try and make this play for you guys. You can let me know if you hear this or not. But I'm going to have to switch it on to my headphones, or it's basically going to blast us to death. So if I switch on the desktop audio, right, and then we press play, continue, then theoretically you should have heard that. Now I don't know if you can hear that or not. But that's how you do it. Give me a little second, I'll turn the actual sound back on. Don't know if this is a good idea or not, or if you'll actually hear this. Right, you can hear it. Hey Daniel, how you doing? Right, do you hear that, somebody? Yeah, it's because of my setup, right? My mic can barely pick it up because it's coming out of speakers on the other side, and it's not, my mic isn't set to omnidirectional, right? But you get the point, it's making a sound. Okay, so that's how you do it. Okay, now if you want a sound in a position, like where the actual thing happens, right, you can also do that. And all you need to do is play sound at location. Okay? Now, there's a little bit of difference here, right? Because we're going to play it at the hit location, right? And then once again, we can pull out our explosion sound. And the next thing we need to do is we need an attenuation, right? Now, an attenuation is like the settings for like the drop off and distance of the sound, right? So it's easy to set up an attenuation, but you've got to have it. So like if I just use an impacts attenuation. That'll do, right? So we're using it here. Concurrency doesn't really matter, nothing else really matters. You can leave everything at default, just for argument's sake. And then what we can do is we can plug that in. Now, you might need a listener on your character to hear this sound if you're not close, right? Depending on your attenuation settings. Right, so this is like for, say you were in a world map, right? And there was a waterfall. Well, you're not going to hear the waterfall if you're miles away from it, right? And that's what the attenuation is for, because it basically tells the listener that at what point you begin to hear the sound. Okay? So, but that's how you set it up with the location. You need to give it a location of where the sound emanates from, etc., etc. And we'll try that. I don't know if we're going to hear it because I'm not set up for that, but we might. There's our rocket. Yeah, I've not got it set up. Right, but that's how you do it for a 3D sound. Okay? But if you want to just hear it straight away, just use the play sound 2D. And as I said, that's a flat sound. It gets played at the same level, etc., etc., wherever you are on the map. Right? So if I set up everything as 2D sounds, it doesn't matter on the map where I am in relation to that object that's making the sound. What matters is it's a 2D sound, so it's going to play it anywhere. Okay? With the 3D sound, you use your attenuation to add distance to the sound of how far it goes. And then on your character, on your controller, what you would do was you would add an audio listener. Okay? So if I go here and then I go to the controller, what you can do is you can add a component called, I'm pretty sure it's probably it's just audio. Right? Can't remember if that's actually it or not, but the point being that I think you need an audio listener to hear 3D sounds, and I can't remember off the top of my head how you set that up, but I have done it, and that's how you do it. Okay? So hopefully that's helped you out. Let me know if you don't understand. But to test simple sounds, just use the sound, play sound 2D, okay? And that's that. So there is how you play a sound in Unreal Engine. Okay, so I'll delete that. I'll probably leave this explosion sound in because it'll be handy for me later. So you just want to add the play sound wherever it is that it happens. So if it's like an event hit, or somebody presses a button, or you hit a wall, or whatever, you know, like let's say this was an event, or maybe it's not an event, maybe it's on overlap. Like if you overlap with a door, the door makes a click sound or whatever, but it's on an event, it happens, right? So you just play sound 2D. Okay, so back to our code. And where were we? Yeah, we need these. We need to check this to see what it's setting up here, right? So when we draw the graph, we need to actually know what the hell is going on. I need these numbers back to work out if I'm right or not. Right, so and we've just crashed it. Awesome. Well, I've never had as many crashes with this as we're using these graphs. I get even more crashes using these graphs than I do with C++, which is a bloody miracle. But anyway. Well, we'll just have to carry on. Yeah, whatever. Come on then. Come on. Get your cell open. Right. Oh, okay. Right, this is a serious crash because you'll notice that if I press that, nothing happens, so it's going to hang for a minute. So we're going to have to talk to ourselves for a minute. So is anybody else watching got a particular problem like somebody just had? And hi there, Daniel Jacobs. I think I said hi earlier, but hi again if I didn't. Right, so we're going to have to wait till this basically decides that it's actually going to do something. And as I said, this can take a minute or two till it decides that it's going to start playing ball again. Come on, do the right thing. There we go. Right, we're back on. You've just got to be patient sometimes with Unreal Engine. Right, so I'm going to apologise in advance because probably this is going to end up with a couple of crashes before I get it all sorted out and running again. But it's all to do with these bloody graphs. Okay. And that's return highest quantity. So we'll add a breakpoint in here, okay? And I'm going to have to make sure that I'm not... Right, okay, I know what I've done. I'm an idiot. That might stay, but this range shouldn't be there anymore. Okay. It should be like that. Okay, now we were having problems with another couple of issues, but I'll try and explain what the problem was, because what I'm trying to do is keep the array of data values to an absolute minimum where I can, right? So when something moves out after 2 minutes, then values in the seconds get moved into minutes, okay? And then they get amalgamated, so all the values that are from 2 minutes to 3 minutes get amalgamated into one set of data, right? And this was causing a problem, because when I was looking at the later data, when I was trying to get the highest value, it wasn't looking at the amalgamated data. It was looking at the original data. So, like, for example, if you were looking at production over 2 minutes, you would maybe be getting 100 production of bauxite, right? But because I had a scale that was taking it merely from one of them, or a set of 5 seconds, then it would be like 5, right? So when it tried to plot it, it wasn't on the scale, right? So what I've done here is, when I return relevant chart data for the graph that we're showing, it then sets the range, right, based on the relevant chart data. Okay? Now, there are still a couple more to do, and I think this can basically go. I think we can actually just, do this one, but I was just checking things. So now, if we have a look at this, what I'm going to do first is do a save all, just in case. Okay. So I don't actually need to do this, by the way, do this conveyor belt. It just kind of helps for later testing, right? And then we can up the production speed. Now, if I show the graph now, okay, we have got relevant data. Okay, so this should be good. So we can resume. And you can see here that we've got our data. So this is far more efficient than what I was actually doing before, and far more logical. So anyway, you can see that we're getting our 3. If we add more workers, the production speed will go up. I hit the wrong button there. There we go. Must have hit the wrong button. So you can see there that we're now up to 5, right? Now, if I now hit the 1 minute mark, we crash, which is awesome. So whatever it is I've done in the meantime has now got this one to crash. Okay, so we're going to have to start this up again. As I said, we're going to end up with a couple of crashes here, but it's not going to do the big long wait this time. It's going to be fine. It's going to start up straight away. At least I hope so anyway. Famous last words, of course. This is once again all to do with the scale. And I actually know why it did it. I know why it crashed, and I'm going to have to fix it. Except it shouldn't have. Yeah, I was thinking there that the default for the... Yeah, I'm an idiot. It's fine. I know how to fix it straight away. I shall explain the issue to you when it comes up. The problem was that, if you remember rightly, I set the highest value to 0, right? And if there's no data, then it's not going to actually reset it at all. You'll notice that this time it worked straight away. So the point being here is that when I reset, it was return highest, right? It was here. Now, if this value is 0, then the graph is going to fail. So we want to set it to 1 by default, okay? So that at least it's got something to work with. Now, it doesn't need to be accurate in this case, because if you've got no data, it doesn't really matter what the scale is, right? So that should be that issue fixed. If it's not got anything here, it's just going to basically return 1, okay? The problem was that it was returning 0, and that's what basically made it crash, okay? So we need to keep our eye on that. Now, this is where the fun starts. This function here called remove after 2, right? Basically, any data that we're saving that is related to the seconds chart, we can kill it after 2 minutes, because it's no longer going to show to that accuracy anymore. It's redundant, okay? So we don't want to save it, right? Now, what I'm going to do is say 16 here, right? So, our point is that we're going to need an array for the seconds. Okay, so when we return the minutes version, we create a new array of everything added together for each minute. Okay, so we're going to be adding all the entries from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, from 4 minutes to 5 minutes, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, right? And then we're going to pass that out as the return data for the relevant data for the next chart, right? So it's return minute data. Okay, now I've disabled these just now, but this and this are the first 2 minutes, right? Remember, our other things are basically not that. Okay, that data is in seconds, so we add all that together to give us the first minute, then we get the stuff in the second minute, add all that together, and that becomes one data point. And then what we've got to do is add all the minute data together to give us those data points. Okay, so what we need to do is save this for now, go back to our remove after 2, right? And what we actually have to do here is we have to get this value and divide it by 60. Okay, plug it in there. Now, after that, we actually need to check if there is a value for this. If there's already an array element with this value in it. Okay. So let me just think about this for a minute. Right, okay. What we've got to do is we've got to get our data points, right? And we've got to check the product and the time. Okay? And we've got to create so in our data points we're going to have to check to see if it exists. Right, with this time. Okay, now remember it's the time divided by 60. Okay. So now there's a way we could do this that's probably no very good. We could do this every minute, right? Or we can do it when we need to do this. Right? So, right, let's just, it's quite complicated and it's given me pause because I don't really want to start it because I know this is going to be a big huge long line train of thought here, right? But we're going to have to do it. So we're going to have to check this struct, right? Especially the time and the minutes. And if the minutes and the time exist, then we add to that quantity, right? If it doesn't exist, then we create that array element with that quantity in it, and then we start adding to it, okay? So we're going to have to do some functions here. So let's add a function does minute, we'll call it does minute data exist, okay? And we are going to be passing in the product, which is an E item, and the minute, which is an integer, okay? So let's go back to where we were, which wasn't there. It was the remove after 2, right? So we're going to delete that for now. And we are going to say, does minute data exist? Okay. And that is going to go before any of this. Right? So that goes in there. And this is going to have an output, so we're going to have to get set up for that as well. So in the meantime, we can take as much space as we need here. So we can break that again and just say time is minute and product here. Okay. Then we can double click on this and click on this, and it's going to have an output, and we say already. That's if we can manage to spell it. Exists, and that's going to be a bool. Okay. And we're going to be looping through this twice, once for the product and once for the minute. So we're going to be going through the data points. And that's going to be for each with break. We want to break immediately. It's not going to be quite as simple as that. Oh yeah, it is. Right. And in here we're going to add a local. We're going to call it temp exists. We're going to drag it in, and so we're going to set it to false when we come in. Right, and then this is going to go down here, and then we basically plug that in there. Okay, and then we basically pull off here, we break this, and we say right. Now the first thing we do is we drag off here and we say equals, so if that equals minutes, we can continue. So we branch that. Okay. If it isn't minutes, then we're not even worried about what it is, right? Because it doesn't relate to our minute data, okay? So the next thing we say is, if that equals and that equals, and we do an and boolean. So if that equals the right number, the right minute, and if it equals the right product, then what we're going to do is temp exists equals true. Okay, otherwise we're just going to carry on and not set it. Okay, so that basically goes in there, because if both of those are true, then that's true, then that gets set to true. Okay, and then we just return that on false. Okay, so that is going to tell us if we already have a entry in our data points that's related to minutes and is related to the current product. Now, what we can do is this can go to break, because the minute we set that, we don't care about anything else after this. All we care about is the minute it gets set to true, we're jumping out of here and passing it back. Okay, and I think that needs to go a touch higher. So we shall save that, and at this point what we can do is do a save all, and I'm going to grab a quick cigarette. So if anybody's watching, hit the subscribe button, check out the description. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Okay guys, we're back, and thank you all yous who have subscribed, by the way. It's very kind of you, and we shall carry on with this. Okay, now the next part is we can actually make this a bit more efficient for us by adding another local variable and calling it p index. Okay, this is going to give us a reference basically to what index in our data points array we actually want to pass back, right? So if we pass it back, we can reference this directly when we want to either add a quantity or add a brand new data point. Okay, so what we should do is we should drag this in and say set, right? And then we can join this up to this, and we basically set it to this index here. Okay, so if we find our relevant data point, then we're going to pass back the index. Okay, and that's going to show, or that's going to give us a reference directly to update the correct data point. Okay, so in our return node, we're going to add p index. Now, okay, so for this we'll call it ref index. Okay, and it's going to be an integer, and there we go. So now what we can do is we can drag in our p index, goes in there, and when we call this, we're going to get the reference back to the right one. Okay, now what we need to do is in here we need the minute, which is going to go in here, and we need the product, which is going to go in here, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to swap these positions to make it a bit tidier for us, and we can drag this down a bit. Okay, then we can drag this out a bit. Then for this one as well, we can drag this down a bit to there. Then we can drag it down a bit. Okay, and that gets us sorted there. So we are now passing both of these back. We can compile that, and now we go back to our remove after 2, and you'll notice now that does minute data exist, and we've got if it exists and if it doesn't, and we've also got a ref index. Okay, so here we go. We now branch off of that. So just to let you guys see exactly the logic behind this, right? This would be true, then add quantity to existing, and on the false it would be false, create new data point. And this would actually be, let's keep this right for you guys. Data point. Okay, so on the true we add the quantity to the existing data point, and if false we create the new data point. Okay, so we go to data points and drag it in, and we get a copy. Then we get our index from there. Then we set members. And we do the quantity. Okay. I'm going to do a bit of tidying up on this, guys, but guys, don't worry. Hey, Jamie, what's up, man? No worries. Anytime you join, it's fine. Right, so we have found our data point. And what we do is we get the quantity. We're going to have to break this. I'm going to have to move this out of the way, guys, by the way, because we've got a bit more to do yet. Okay. So we break this. And the only one we want is the quantity. I would have to show you some, I would have to give you the base sizes for like a building and stuff like that first, so that you could build to the same scale as what I'm doing at the moment. Right, but there are a couple of things you could do. Right, so where was I? Right. So basically what we're doing is we're taking the quantity from this one, right? And we are actually adding and we shall move this to there. Then we're adding that to there. And then that is going in there. Okay. Then we're getting our data points again. And we are setting array element. Right, and that's going in here, and the index is here. To scale, not a scale. Like, I need to show you the sizes that I'm currently using, right? I mean, I haven't said that, it's all probably going to change anyway, but And now we'll tidy this up a bit again. Right. We'll move this down a bit. Okay. I will have to show you after, okay? I can't really do it during the stream. I'll have to like export my base building to Blender for you to give you an idea of the thing you've got to build on top, right? Okay, let me show you what I mean. Right, so we've got buildings, right? And we've got a base building. Okay? Now, you don't need this part. So if I say that, take it away. Right, so you would need this model, right? I could just output this FBX, right, to show you what scale we're working to, right? So if you were building like a metalworks, it needs to fit inside here. No, I don't make anything else. Right, so anyway, you would need to build it, if you're going to build something, you would need to build it within this scale. Right? Because you'll notice that if we look at the fabricator, right, it's got that base and everything is inside it, yeah? So if we like look at the refinery, it's the same, right? They're all based on that same size of building, right? It's within this thing here, right? So I would basically need to send you these two FBXs so that you could see the scale that we're working to, right? So I can do that later, but not right now. Hi Edval Pio. No, I don't make any mods, by the way. Right, so back to here. We've set up our array element. I'm going to tidy all this up because it's a bit of a mishmash at the moment, but after this, okay, our original index is going to get removed, okay? But first of all, we've got to do the false. So this can go, and this can go, and that can go. Maybe not. I maybe need that. In fact, yeah, I do, but we've got a thing there anyway. Right, so if we do not find our already exists, then basically we're going to get our data points and we're going to add. Okay? So we're going to say add, and that is going to go in there. And funnily enough, right, it's going to come directly from here. Okay? And then once we've done that, we're going to get our data points again, and we're going to remove the original. Okay? And that index is going to come from that index over here. Okay? And then both of these are going to go into here. Okay? So this is going to start tidying up our redundant data. Now we're going to do the same thing again when we get to hours and then days. Okay? We're going to basically clean up all the data and basically amalgamate all the data together. Right? So we can do that. And then we can tidy this up a bit, make it look a bit better. Hey, you're up. Nice to see you again, mate. It's nice to see faces returning. We're missing Kofi and we're missing, what's his name? Dr. Spock? Mr. Spock. Right, so what we could do here is we could bring this back a bit. Then we could actually get this index right out the way by bringing it right down there. And right to there. And in fact, we could move these right over here. And that's going to be a lot tidier. Okay. Save that. We're going to do a save all at this point. I'm doing good, mate. We're just working on graphs. We're doing the stats now. We did a lot of the groundwork over the last couple of days, and what I'm interested in at this point so done that, then we can do that. Let's have a look at our graphs now. So this isn't affecting the stuff that we're doing just now, but it is going to be affected on the controller, right? when we actually look at our data points, right? So these data points are going to get bigger and bigger, but the interesting thing is that this one is going to turn into minutes after 2 minutes, right? And then it's actually going to be deleted, but it's going to actually be recreated, right? And then what will happen is these will all gradually get added to this new data point, right? All the quantities are going to get added as we move forward. Okay, so we shall suddenly see this 15 change, and it will become basically this one, whatever this one is, 20, right? Obviously. And it's going to happen in about 20 seconds. Okay, things should start happening now. Yep, there's our 20, right? And now we should have one down here that's going to be our minutes. Okay. That's seconds. Where's our one-way minutes? Okay, so we need to go back and find out what's going on here. Okay. So we step over. It doesn't exist. So we should be adding this one. So if we step over that, if we step over again, right? It was index 31, okay? So that's still, there we go. Okay. So in theory, we're doing bauxite all the time here, right? So we should find this. But it says false, right? So we're basically going to have to add a breakpoint in here to check it. Okay, so does data exist, right? Resume. So it's coming in here. And the minute is 1. And the product is bauxite. Okay. Now, the question is, does it ever hit here? So, it does. Now, the interesting part, step over. Step over. And now, our P index should be something. And it is, it's 9. Okay? So step over. Step over. And this should be true. What? Wait a minute. Okay, let's break that down again. Oh, I'm an idiot. Right, goofball. This is getting quite complicated, but anyway. So we should be testing this, right, to say branch. Doof. Right, so that explains it. And we don't actually need to do that. We actually just set it and save it. Okay. So if we go back to our remove after 2, we can disable that breakpoint. And then we can add that one. Right? Right, so hopefully I've broken the back of this particular little conundrum. We can take a look at the graph for now. And I'll just let this run. I'm just going to be back in a second, guys. Back in a minute. Okay, so we needed some time there anyway to do this part. We can resume that, resume that. Okay, so we can take that away, resume that, resume that, and yeah, so we're getting, yeah, it's going to start off low, that's okay. Okay, so we can disable this just now, and then we can basically go L, 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 a couple more L's for that matter, which is adding workers, which is making things faster, and we have crashed. No, we haven't. We've hit a breakpoint. Resume. There we have our we can hit our L's now. We may need to close this because it doesn't like, there we go, it does not like breakpoints. Now one of the interesting parts now is going to be our data points. Right, because we should soon start getting some weird yeah, you see how that one disappeared? And that's now changing. Okay, so we've still got seconds ones. Now I'm not sure where the minute one's going to start. There we go, minutes, and its quantity is 10, quantity 12. Hey Bondale, how you doing, mate? Right, so in theory, mind you, not in practice yet, but our minutes one is now up to 25. Okay. And we've got box 8 minutes, we're on to the third minute. Right, so that was 26. Right, so we've got 2 sets of minutes data. Okay, this is where things have become a little tough to test it because I'm having to wait for 2 minutes to actually get data coming through. I'm going to have to do some tweaks to this to do it faster. Right, but now, okay, let's go for it, guys. Let's hit the button, shall we? Wow, let's change the scale, that's for sure. Well, thank you very much. Come on, Dale, that's very kind words. Right, so it's doing something. It is, however, setting everything to like 6. You'll notice how the scales went up to 70. Right, but the problem here, I think, at the moment is I don't know why they're all set at -6. It's a bit of a strange one. Right, so that's settings. We'll just check these out. Yeah, we've got bauxite minutes there. Time to. Right, here's our minutes. On minute 4 we had, well, on minute 3 we've got 60. On minute 2 we've got 30. So I don't know why these aren't drawn in the right place, but from what I was telling you earlier, okay, what's happening is that you'll notice that we're still at 30, okay? Our array is still at a maximum of 30, which is exactly what we want. We don't want our array getting too big, right? So my amalgamation or consolidation of the data is working absolutely perfectly, okay? And gradually our minutes are ending up at the top, right? Because these are going to survive until we hit 30 minutes. And then they're going to get amalgamated and consolidated into the hours. So we're going to end up with hours at the top. Then we're going to have 30 minutes. Oh, okay. Back in a second, guys. Okay, sorry there, guys. Wife couldn't open the front door. It was a bit jammed. Anyway, so what will end up happening is we'll end up with hours first, then minutes, and then all the seconds data at the bottom. So you'll notice that these are all the seconds. We're up to 600 minutes, 600 seconds. So we're actually up to the 10th minute of data, right? So in theory, that's just suddenly changed to minutes. There you go. Okay. So we've got 7 minutes. So yeah, that's right. But what I think the problem is that I actually changed the code right. So it's actually in the event graph. I did a reverse, which I probably do not need to do. Right, so I can probably delete that. Notice the probably. Save that. And as I said, this is where it gets kind of difficult to test it, especially on stream, because it's going to take 2 minutes for the data to get far enough that things are actually going to start happening. From the graph point of view. Right? But that's okay. I'm happy with this, right? I'm happy with this graph. The first graph. Once I've cracked the second graph, then the third and fourth graph are going to be a squish, right? And then the all time I'm not too sure about yet. I'll need to work it out in my head how that logically will work. But yeah, we'll work it out. But once again, if we click on this, we can see the data getting built up. And it'll gradually get to what, 24, and then it'll start actually creating the minute ones, and then gradually all the ones. So what's going to happen here is, right, that the minute one will get added to the end, right, and then as these ones are consolidated into the minutes, then the minute one will actually move up in the index. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. Or at least that's what should happen if my logic is correct. Now, I don't know why it's not coming up with the seconds and the quantity here. I've got a little sneaky suspicion on it, but we can set it dynamically. Right, so now that that graph is at the end, we should be creating new data sets for the minutes. Okay, so the minutes should be starting to get created. There it is. Okay. And you'll notice that it's already moving up. It's up to position number 22. And now it's up to position 21, right? So you can see it basically getting bubble sorted to the top, right? Which is makes sense when you think about the logic and how it's working. And I think what I'll do here is I'm going to actually wait until this value is at the top, right? And it's at 11 at the moment. Now it's at 10. Okay, so it's at 9 now. We're at 8. 7. We're now at 5. Now at 4. Now at 3. At 2. Nearly there, guys, nearly there. Now we're at 1. And there's our 2. We've got 0 and 1. Okay. And the question is, yeah, that's 4. Right, so we're now soon going to have 1 at 3. And this should be gradually going up. So we're basically seeing 0, 14. Then the next one should be bigger again. It's now at 18. So we're gradually going up in production as we hit the L button. Okay, somebody, give us a minute. Best thing to do is join my Discord. Check it to the description. And I might be able to help you after the stream, but I don't know what your use case is, so I don't know how to actually help you. But if you're coming to my Discord, you can send me screenshots and I can give you more advice, okay? Right. So we've got our data points now for our second graph. Right, now there is something not quite right because it shouldn't start at 0. Okay, so we're going to have to think about that and why it's doing it. But anyway, right, we've got 3 minutes. We've not got 4 yet. But if we hit the button, what do we get? Well, we've got something. Okay, somebody, I'll join. I'll be in Discord in a minute or 2. Now, I'm not 100% sure why this graph isn't drawn properly. So, what we could do, now it is giving us values, right? It is giving us values, it's just the scale isn't right, so the minute thing isn't right. Okay? So, hang on a second here. This is the second, and it's 4:30. Right? So, oh, it did something a bit different there, but then it kind of just falls apart there. So what I could do is, I think when I get off stream, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dummy array with values in it. A dummy array with some values in it, and then see if it plots correctly, or if I'm still getting that issue. And once I get it plotting correctly, then what I'll do is check the data against the data that's actually coming out, and then I'll take it from there and make sure that the two are aligned properly. Okay, because the thing is, at the moment, I need to actually see when we return the real-time data what we're doing with this data here. Now it looks as if we're not really doing anything with the data. We're getting the time, and that's right. Okay, so it looks like when we get return the minute data, we actually need, yeah, this is just rubbish. Yeah, okay, so that's just rubbish. So I had done that because I wasn't removing the indexes and I was getting the timestamp and all the rest of it. So this bit of code hasn't changed, and that's what's screwing it up, I believe. Right? And on that point, we are going to end the stream. So I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back again, remember, in 4 hours time, 8 p.m. Central. If, like somebody, you need some specific help, then join the Discord. The link is in the description, along with my Patreon and my previous game on Steam. So I hope to see you all again, and even better if you can join me later on tonight. And otherwise, have a great Saturday.